This is the year 2020. And does 2020 mean that we can clearly envision the future? Or does it mean something else? Well, that's the thought that's on my mind, and I believe it's going to bless you to see what's going on and to help you handle all the stressors that are happening this year. But anyways, welcome to the Truth Church Online. I'm Pastor Kevin Thomas of the Truth Church. And as always, I invite you to greet one another, especially if you're watching this live in our chat room right here at thetruthchurch.online.church. But before I ask that question, I've been thinking about it all week long. Before I answer that question, I want to turn over and go to Sister Robin and to our incredible praise team.
Hi, Truth Church family and friends. Just here to remind you to be faithful in giving your tithes and offerings. Remember, there are several ways you can give. You can give through Cash App or Zelle, or you can go to our website, get-truth.org, and you can give online. Again, just want to remind you, be faithful. We appreciate you. God bless.
I want to thank our praise team, and Sister Robin, as always, want to thank you for all your hard work. But let me jump into this message. I'm trying to think whether I should do it all now or split it up and do it in two parts. So let me just get back to what we were talking about. I want to talk about vision. When we hear the words 2020, we think about, vision, eyesight. And so really, let me just start it off this way. Have you ever been out and thought you looked good and until you looked into the mirror and you saw that your clothes were jacked up, or you had a big piece of lint in your hair, which I don't have that problem. But anyways, this is how this year has been. I thought it was going to be a gentle and insightful year, but it's been just the opposite. It's been, I mean, so much. You've been here, so you know what's going on. But sometimes we have to reassess what God is doing or what God is allowing to happen, then make adjustments to be happy or successful. And I really think that this is really what God has dropped in my spirit, is that we need to assess what's going on and address this year differently than what we thought we had to. That's reason, not just on a national stage and on a global stage, but even in your life, some things that are going on, and we're all impacted what's going on globally with the pandemic, nationally with the social justice, or I say social injustice protests, and the changes that need to be made, and all that adds up, and it does affect us all. And so let's look at this. Again, I started off saying this year is 2020 because I want to talk about that word 2020. And does 2020 mean you can see into the future, you can envision and plan for a better future, or does it mean something else? Like maybe I can clearly see what's in front of me. Can you clearly see what's in front of you? Is that what it means? So here's a topic today I want to share with you. Is I want to contrast what I thought 2020 would be versus what 2020 has been, what it is. Okay, what 2020 has been. And so what I thought it would be, as I said, is looking into the future and envisioning this plan for a better future. But what it has been, it's proven to be several things. And so let me just start off with one of the things that I think it has been, and that's going to be found in Proverbs 29:18. And in Proverbs 29:18, a very popular verse, I'll read it in two versions. In the New American Standard Bible, it says, I'm looking at the screen there, it says, where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained, but happy is he who keeps the law. In the King James, it says, where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained, but happy is he that keepeth the law, happy is he, or he that keepeth the law, happy is he. But anyways, going back to the New American Standard Version, where it says, where there is no vision, okay, you don't have that sight. It's saying that people are unrestrained. And if you study that word unrestrained, it talks about how the Israelites would do the hair. They would braid it. You know how some of you are, you unbraid your hair and it's going to be there all over the place. And that's what it's saying. It's like people are going to be all over the place. So when we look at what is going on pandemic-wise, when we look at what's going on with social injustice, people are all over the place because there is no clear vision of a path forward. Okay, and as soon as we get a clear vision of the path forward, then we'll see things coming back in line. It says the people perish. I mean, that one is self-explanatory. Where there is no vision, the people perish. There are people dying because of some of this police brutality, because there is no real vision of what's right and what's wrong and what to do about it. And so what has 2020 been like? I think it's this, and this is a key phrase I want you to take away today, is I think 2020 is not so much about looking into the future or putting a plan together to envision a better future. We need to do that. But I think that 2020 is about having 2020 eyesight, 2020 vision. And here's the phrase, seeing ourselves as we are. That's really what I think this is about. Because when we look at our nation, rather than have a path forward or a vision for a better future, which we do need to get, but we're really seeing what America is really like. And the rest of the world is protesting along with us because they are seeing this is who we really are. This is what this nation is really like. We are seeing ourselves as we are. And we could shift this to the pandemic. And some people, quarantine and get to see who they really are and who's in the house and showing themselves for who they really are. Other people are doing well. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that. But I am going to say this. With the pandemic, we did not help China. We did not ask our scientists and our medical experts and all those disease experts when this COVID-19 broke out in China. We didn't reach out and help them. We thought it was their problem. That's how we looked at it. It's their problem until it became our problem. And now the United States has more deaths than China did. And China is, way over a billion people, like 1.2, 1.3, whatever it is, billion people. We're 330 million. We're not even close to that. We're like a fourth, or third or fourth. You do the math of their side. But in other words, they're several times bigger than we are. But we thought it was their problem. Maybe we need to become a more compassionate nation. And so maybe that's what God is showing us, is that 2020 is not so much about looking into the future, but seeing ourselves as we really are, is that maybe this nation is not as compassionate as this nation pretends to be, because we could have helped our Chinese brothers and sisters while it was still contained in China. And maybe the outbreak over here wouldn't have been as bad, or maybe not as all, or well contained. In other words, vision, it was, where there's no vision, that people are unrestrained. This virus seemed like it's been unrestrained because there was no vision, no compassionate vision to help China when it broke out over there. So maybe we need to see ourselves as we really are. And I want to go back to that idea in thought for a second. And maybe not being as a compassionate nation as we sometimes pretend to be, maybe that's why we're still having social injustice problems, because we're not as compassionate as we really are. We're really not taking a look into the mirror and seeing ourselves for who we really are. And so look at Philippians. Let's go to the New Testament and let's look at valuing others. In Philippians 2, 3, and 4, chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, it says, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind." Wow, this verse is packed. "With humility of mind." I just want to stop there for a second. If people were more humble, I don't think that we'd have some of the problems that we have. We would not be doing things from selfishness, putting ourselves at the center. And I'm not talking about the social injustice. Well, I guess I am. But I was talking more about the pandemic. And I'm saying, we'll get into that in a moment. But just keep that part in mind about even with the pandemic and selfishness. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. That's where the humility comes in. To look at somebody else and say, I'm going to treat that person as if they are more important than myself. So it's not just to regard, but it's to think that way and then act on it. Verse 4 says, "Do not merely look out for your own interest, for your own personal interest." I like it. He says your own personal interest, but also for the interest of others. And so when we pull this in, we know there's an organization, Black Lives Matter, and there's a saying, Black Lives Matter. And so talking about the saying, Black Lives Matter is really all about seeing the God-given value in Black people, which is missing in America, and other parts of the world, but it's still missing in America. That's why it's so important to say Black Lives Matter, because yes, all lives matter, but until we can get to the point where everybody says Black Lives Matter and means it, then all lives don't matter. And so you have to put Black Lives Matter in there and mean it before you can realistically say all lives matter. That's why it's such a big deal when somebody just comes out and says all lives matter, and then you're saying, well, yeah, that's true. But they have not yet, most likely is the argument, they have not yet acknowledged and behaved in such a way that they're showing from their heart that Black lives matter too. So it's easy to say all lives matter, but you have to acknowledge Black lives are important too. It says, esteem or regard one another is more important than yourselves in Philippians 2. And so black people get it, and there's still a lot of white Americans that get it and they value us, but there's still a lot that value above black lives. They value comfort and cash and complacency and willful ignorance. That means they choose to ignore it. They can see it's a problem, but it's willful. It's a choice to choose. And so the problem is obvious. And like I said, black people get it. There's a lot of white people that get it. There's a lot of brown people that get it. There's a lot of people around the world that get it. But black lives do matter. We have to value others. That's what Philippians 2 is talking about, that we have to value before we can, say all lives matter. We have to understand in America that black lives matter too. Okay, black lives matter too. And so, but even for an example, the shelter in order and mask. The shelter in order protects self. If I stay in and nobody's bringing those germs into my home, then I'm safe from the COVID-19 virus. But the quarantine protects others. When people are exposed, they ask them to quarantine themselves for a couple of weeks. And they're saying, if you do that, then you're protecting others. But the mask also protects others, unless you're wearing the N95. But it for the most part, it protects others. They say it may give us some protection, but it definitely gives the people that we're around protection. But some don't get it or don't care. When we go out, we see people that aren't wearing masks. I'm not going to shame people, into wearing a mask, do mask shaming. But the point is, other people's lives matter. Sometimes when I'm out in the community, maybe at the grocery store, and somebody's in there without a mask and they're sneezing and coughing and things like that, how do I know that they haven't been exposed? In other words, I wear the mask because I know that it makes other people feel comfortable, and hopefully it adds a measure of protection for me. All right. And so, but because other people are important, I don't want to wear a mask when it's hot out, but I do it because other people are important. Let me give you one more point, and then I think I'm going to stop after this point and then come back in a part 2, because I really have some things I want to say about, this year in 2020 and how we could be thinking. If you're like me, your mind has just been going a million miles an hour trying to process everything that's going on this year. Let me say 3 names, even though I could spend the rest of this broadcast listing names. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, etc., etc., etc. I could go on naming names, but this nation, I love this nation, but this nation is extremely oppressive, and historically it's been a nation that oppresses people. And to me, that's hypocrisy. And Jesus said in Matthew 7:5, he said, "You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eyes." So I hear people, and as I said, I have pastor friends who call me from all over the United States and from Canada, and a lot of these guys are Anglo, white pastors, and they're trying to figure it out, because they're saying some things they get, some things they don't get, and they have some members that get it, and they have some members that don't get it, and they have some members that don't want to get it, and they're trying to pastor these people into the right place, all right? And so we have a lot of in-depth conversations. I just got off of a phone call on Saturday evening. It was almost 4 hours, okay? And we were just talking about a lot of things, some personal things as well, checking on each other, but a lot of what's going on in the world with the pandemic and the social injustice in the United States. And so, but this nation is extremely hypocritical. Again, Matthew 7:5, Jesus says, "You hypocrite." He says, "You're pretending, you play actor. You pretend like this stuff matters to you, but it doesn't." He's saying, stop criticizing all these other people and saying they got a speck in their eye. And he's saying, you got this big log in the United States. For a lot of people, we can, in a lot of systems, systemic racism, we can say, you got the big log of racism and racial discrimination and mistreatment of black and brown people in your eye, but you want to complain because they're protesting and there's some looting and some rioting. I'm against the looting. I'm against the rioting. But what Jesus is simply saying, is sometimes you have to take the log out of your own eye. And it's not just for our white brothers and sisters that don't get it yet. We're praying that they will. We know there's some that don't want to get it and they'll never get it. And so we just need to keep praying for them as well. But also for ourselves. Apply this to yourself. If that doesn't fit you, apply it in an area of your life that it fits. God's word is relevant. But this nation is extremely hypocritical because it condemns other nations for human rights and civil rights violations, but it has had 401 years to correct the mistreatment of black people. Not 4 months, not 4 years, not 4 decades, 4 centuries and 1 year to correct the mistreatment of black people. Okay, it is past time for this to be corrected. And let's not even talk about this nation and the stolen land from the Native Americans or the original border of Mexico. Let's not even talk about, California and Arizona and all these, Colorado and all these areas out there. And then the United States has the audacity to call one state New Mexico because it was old Mexico. All right. And so that's hypocrisy, mistreatment of people, especially people of color. But let me just, I'll give you a hint of one more, and we'll pick up here next time. But the golden rule, we'll pick up on the golden rule next time. But just think about what this year, what lessons is God trying to teach us? What is this year really about? When we look at this, again, I'm saying, is this year about making plans for the future and envisioning a better future? I think we need to do that. Or is it really about seeing ourselves as we are? And I think that's really what God has done. He's quarantined people in the house so they can see who they really are. And some have seen who they really are. He's allowed the social injustice to come to the forefront of our conversation. So not just only do we see who we are, but the world sees who we are. And what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? But anyways, that's just part of my thought. And if Lord says the same, I'll come back next time and review a little bit of this and finish this thought out. And but I just really kind of pensive and reflecting, pensive, just quiet and thinking. There's just so much going on. So just think, what is it that God wants us to learn? What is it? Does he want us to be more compassionate? I think you know the answer to that. Does he want you to be more compassionate? Does he want you to stop being hypocritical, complaining about social injustice, but you mistreat people by the way you talk or your attitude or the things you say and do or don't do and don't say in your own home among your own loved ones? We all need to check ourselves. I'm checking myself. And but just think about those things and just think about those things. What is this year really about? What is God up to and what does he want us to learn? What does he want you to learn? Well, that's our message for today. And I just want to remind you that we'll be right back here at the truthchurch.online.church. You can visit our website at gettruth.org. It's right here on the screen. And as always, remember that God loves you and I love you. And until next time, go in peace.
Just here to remind you to be faithful in giving your tithes and offering. Remember, there are several ways you can give. You can give through Cash App or Zelle, or you can go to our website, get-truth.org, and you can give online. Again, just want to remind you, be faithful. We appreciate you. God bless.